President Trump renewed his public feud with four progressive congresswomen Monday. The debate was sparked last week and shows no signs of slowing down. Ben Tracy is at the White House with the latest.
I really think they must hate our country.
The president is still on the attack, now calling these four congresswomen racist. In a tweet today, the president said the squad is a very racist group of troublemakers who are young, inexperienced, and not very smart.
Mr. President, why is the squad racist?
The president didn't respond, but he's quickly elevated the profiles of these freshman congresswomen after tweeting last week that they should go back to the countries they came from.
Yeah, I'm not going nowhere. Not until I impeach this president.
Michigan Representative Rashida Tlaib is part of the so-called squad. She spoke at the NAACP convention in Detroit today.
And it's beyond just the four of us. You are all the squad.
The CBS News poll shows that 82% of Republicans agree with President Trump's go-back tweets, while 88% of Democrats disagree. Supporters at the president's rally in North Carolina last week chanted, "Send her back," in reference to Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, an immigrant from Somalia. The president did nothing to stop it. He later said he was unhappy about it, but then called the crowd incredible patriots.
You have a chance to say it right now. Well, don't do it again.
Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett pressed Vice President Mike Pence on whether Team Trump would stop future racist chants.
Major, the president was very clear.
Was he?
That he wasn't happy about it, and that if it happened again, he'd make an effort to speak out about it.
And joining me now from Washington is Javed Ali. He is the former senior director for counterterrorism at the National Security Council and a policymaker in residence for the Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan. Javed, thank you very much for joining us. Iran alleges it has arrested 17 possible spies for the CIA. These were 17 Iranians, not U.S. citizens. How skeptical should we be of these kinds of reports?
Well, Elaine, thank you for having me this evening. And with the question about the Iranian, or alleged Iranian spy ring, or the spy ring that was announced, that's a great question. I myself am fairly skeptical of this claim that there was this wide intelligence network that was arrested. I think you have to look at the claim from the Iranians in the backdrop of this cycle of escalation that's been happening over the past few weeks, and whether this announcement was designed specifically to show Iran can demonstrate some capability, send a message to the United States or the West that we can crack down on internal dissent. But it's unclear whether those individuals are actually members of this alleged spy ring.
So Iran has made similar questionable claims in the past. What does it seek to gain in this type of announcement?
I think it would seek to gain something, sort of a demonstration effect, that if the United States can play tough with it in the Persian Gulf, if the United States can issue sanctions, if it can send troops to the region, that Iran theoretically could make an impact on U.S. intelligence operations against it. But again, it's unclear to those of us sitting on the outside that this actually was some kind of disruption to a U.S. intelligence activity. And if it was, and that's a big if, why would the Iranians so be quick to sentence some of these people to death? Why wouldn't they want to hold trials for them, have all this evidence come out that they've allegedly collected? So it just doesn't seem to make sense that this actually is what the Iranians claim it is.
Right. Those are interesting questions that you raised. Well, let's focus on the tanker attacks in the Strait of Hormuz. What is Iran's main incentive in pursuing this kind of harassment?
So Iran is trying to, again, demonstrate capability that just as the United States or Britain can board Iranian ships, impact Iranian naval operations in the Gulf, that it too has the same capability. So when you saw the news footage over the weekend of the Iranian naval commandos fast roping off a helicopter onto the British flag tanker, that was a clear attempt in my mind for the Iranians to say, we have the same capability, we can use it, but they also are very careful not to over-escalate. So there were no shots fired, no abuse of any of the ship's crew that were detained. So this seems to be, mutual attempts to demonstrate capability to the other in the event should things get even further, ratcheted up, that each side can punch back to the other side.
So you say careful not to escalate, yet the British announced a European-led naval mission to ensure safe passage for tankers in the wake of what we saw happen. So do you expect that plan to be successful?
There's been various international agreements over the last 30, 40 years as this crisis with Iran has unfolded over the decades. Sometimes those agreements sort of stay in place, and the Iranians sort of respect those agreements, and things remain relatively calm. And other times, like we've seen over the past few months, things can spike. Because there's so much naval activity in the Straits of Hormuz. There's military ships, there are commercial ships, there's obviously a lot of oil that passes through that part of the world. So this is a densely contested region of naval activity, and for the Iranians, it's depending on how they choose to use the capabilities they have, it's a demonstration of their ability to impact either, again, naval military operations from the West or commercial ships passing through the Gulf.
On top of all this, the British are in the midst of their own leadership sort of situation. How is that complicating the response?
That must be a difficult decision that's going on within Britain. Right now, I think one of the interesting comments today was from Secretary Pompeo, where it appears that he said that the UK needs to assert control of its own military ships as they pass through the Gulf in response to some of the things that have happened over the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure what the sort of overall message was. Was that aimed at the political level in the UK, or was this potentially another demonstration of the Trump administration's policy that when it comes to international agreements, that this administration expects its foreign partners, even our closest partners like the UK, to do more? So it could have been a little bit of both with that message today from the Secretary.
Right, so because the Secretary said that the UK needs to be responsible for its own ships. So what kind of tension could this create between the allies?
It's not clear that it will create a lot of tension or have an impact on this international agreement that may come forward. I think one of the names I've seen is Operation Sentinel. So it likely won't have much of an effect. But I do think there was a message that was trying to be delivered, again, either at the political level or just reinforcing this long-standing administration message that when it comes to national security, the U.S. is going to be the world's leader. But when there are coalitions involved, or it's not just the United States acting unilaterally, it expects its foreign partners to meet its level of commitment.
So President Trump said on Monday Iran's actions are making it, quote, harder for him to want to make a deal. The bottom line here, Javed, do these tensions between the U.S. and Iran push the two sides further apart when it comes to getting any kind of new nuclear agreement?
That is a great question, Elaine, and I think it goes back to what actually is the end state of the administration's strategy in this current crisis. Is it to get Iran to the table by exerting maximum pressure through all these different tools of power that we have in the United States? Or is it a different end state, or is there a different objective involved? And that's not necessarily clear to those of us on the outside, but that is, as these sort of incremental steps continue to happen between the United States, Britain, and Iran, where each side is sort of retaliating at relatively moderate steps against the other, it could make the potential for a deal, if that is really the objective of the administration when it comes to Iran's nuclear program or overall sort of posture against the United States, that could have an impact. Certainly if things get kinetic, or in the sense of if there actually is some kind of shooting match between both sides, that obviously would have a huge impact on the ability to make a deal, get a deal done.
Yeah, the big open question, to what end right now with this strategy? All right, Javed Ali. Javed, thank you very much.
Thank you.